Welcome to everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Dr. Chris Montanaro, and tonight's seminar is covering, the lecture name is The Healthiest and Most Successful Year of Your Life. And it's actually broken up into two different seminars. The first one, Eat Well, Move Well, and Think Well. And then the second half will be more on the successful side of it. So we'll start off on the more health-related side. So we'll go ahead and jump in. There's lots of fun stuff to cover tonight. I often ask patients when I'm lecturing, are you healthier than you were 5 years ago? It gets people thinking a little bit and going back into what their health has been like, and quite often they say, no, I wasn't healthy. I'm not healthier right now than I was 5 years ago. And then, are you as healthy right now as you'd like to be? And most people that obviously come into my office, they've got health concerns and they're not as healthy as they'd like to be. And do you have a plan to be healthier from 5 years from now? And that's the real big key, because we can actually plan that out so that ultimately you've got the best shot at being healthier 5 years from now than if you didn't have that plan set in place. So we're going to talk about those things. So you can go around and you could ask any fifth grader that you wanted. You probably could go as low as even kindergartners. And if you ask them what was healthier for them, whether it was an apple or a donut, across the board, they'll tell you that an apple is going to be healthier. So why is it that we don't choose the apple over the donut? And one of the reasons is because we don't really truly understand the dangers in our decisions. We're marketed to believe that it just doesn't matter what it is that we put into our bodies. This is what happens. We'll take a situation where a parent starts yelling at their child, stop feeding those potato chips to the dog. That'll kill the dog. Those are for you. Or a parent saying, I want you to go sit on the couch. I want you to watch TV for a little while or play some video games. I have to take the dog out for a walk. The dog needs its exercise to be healthy. And a lot of it's linked to not really realizing and participating in the fact that we're truly part of the animal kingdom. We treat ourselves differently, like it doesn't matter what we do one way or another. We're just destined to have whatever type of health that falls upon us. And we'll see today that a lot of where our health is has a lot to do with our choices that we're making. What we don't do is we don't equate those foods like donuts and Ho-Hos and cupcakes and Twinkies with the types of foods that cause cancer, diabetes, heart disease, acne, depression, acid reflux, anxiety, dementia, any number of things. And these foods absolutely will do that. We look at those potato chips and just kind of think of it as a type of food because it's in the grocery store. And, the white refined processed bread that there's absolutely zero nutrition in, we think of that as food. And if we started changing our focus a little bit and saying, you know what, that absolutely will cause disease in my life. The amount of sugar and inflammation and destruction that it will cause will ultimately lead to several different chronic and degenerative issues and health concerns. So essentially what we end up doing is poisoning our body, and we're poisoning the world around us because of it as well. How many people truly can drink the water from a lake or a stream within 5 miles of their house? Certainly in the central New York area, it's not the fact. We actually have one of the most polluted lakes in the entire world. And very few people in the world can, and this just wasn't something that was true 300 years ago. So how is it that we think that we can poison our streams and not be poisoning ourselves? How can we see the animals dying in those streams and think that we're healthy? And would you ever consider drinking the water from the runoff of the farms growing your children's food? It just doesn't make sense that we're eating those things, and it should concern us quite a bit. And there is not one drop in the entire ocean that's not contaminated with PCBs, which is a fire retardant. The whales are so toxic with DDT that we haven't used since the 1970s that we fear for their survival. Last year, there was a study that measured the flow of blood from the mother to the fetus and measured over 200 chemicals in it. And the prevailing belief system is that we're sick because of bad luck, bad germs, and bad genes. And truly and honestly, that's incredibly bad science, and we're going to get into that in more depth. We are sick because of bad choices, and we compound those bad choices with time, and it catches up to us. So as long as you believe that you're sick because of bad luck, bad germs, or bad genes, then you believe that you have no control and that what you do doesn't matter, which is why you can eat the chocolate and the donut and feel like it just doesn't matter to the overall outcome. So what I'm here to tell you is that it does absolutely determine your health, is how you eat, how you move, and how you think. Unfortunately, it's now controversial that how we eat is important. It's controversial that you're sick because you eat Twinkies, yet it's true, and you're sick because of that, and it's the best science that we have that proves it. It's now controversial that people are sick because they do not exercise enough. I can tell you 100% that exercise is not a choice that makes you feel better or look better, even though it will do both of those for you. Exercise is a required nutrient like oxygen, and it's not possible to have a sense of well-being and be as healthy as you can be if you don't exercise every single day. In your state of mind, loving yourself and others, contributing and belonging, you can't be well without those things either. It's a triad that needs to come together for us to be able to be as healthy as we can possibly be. So we're going to take a look at a situation from two different points of view. One's going to be more from the biologist's point of view, and another one's going to be more from a pathologist's point of view. So if we were to take, for example, a healthy chimpanzee out of the wild and you put him into captivity, think to yourself for a second, is that chimpanzee ultimately going to be a healthier chimpanzee, or is it going to end up being more sick being in captivity? And every time I've got an audience in front of me and ask this question, it's pretty obvious to everybody that there certainly will be sicker in captivity. Well, what's going to happen is then as you take the chimpanzee out of its normal healthy environment, and I'm sure most people have never heard of even a sick chimpanzee out in the wild. So we've got this sick chimpanzee now in the captivity. So in those situations, a biologist's point of view is going to say, okay, well, it was healthy in the wild, and now we've taken it and put it into captivity, and it's sick. What's changed? What's happened about the environment? And we realize that it's certainly moving differently. It's just kind of sitting there on the log, maybe hanging around every once in a while. It's eating differently. Every bit of the food is going to be different. The way that they have to go look for it's going to be different, and they're thinking differently. They don't have to think to save their life or to keep themselves alive every day and to stay sharp like that. They're just kind of sit there and let their brain go to mush in a sense. So all three of those things are significantly changing. But from the pathologist's point of view, it says, oh, look at that. The chimpanzee's blood pressure has gone up. Or it's having blood sugar issues. It's almost developing diabetes. And the cholesterol is going up. And all these different things. The pathologist would then say, oh, well, here, take this medication for that symptom and another medication for your stomach and one for your, whatever it is. So there's two totally different points of view. But if we take that same scenario where we've taken our human selves from our hunter-gatherer wild selves when we were truly much healthier individuals, when we're moving the way that we're supposed to and thinking and eating much, much differently, where we don't have all that processed and refined foods, we're eating more natural things, then we've certainly created a situation where we're more in captivity. We're more lethargic. We're a whole lot more sick and creates a lot of issues for ourselves. So now if you could picture for yourself a scale with 10 out of 10 health on one side and 0 out of 10 health on the opposite side. Okay? Let's just say hypothetically that you're at 5 out of 10. What is there in drugs or surgery that will help you to move to 10 out of 10 health? And there's absolutely nothing. Now, granted, a lot of times drugs and surgery will keep you from going to 0 out of 10 very quickly, and it's very powerful at doing that often. And it's not to belittle their place in the healthcare system. But nothing in the drugs and surgery world will bring you closer to 10 out of 10 health and actually improving your health. The entire system of healthcare has nothing to do with either health or care. It's sickness care, and there's no wellness in drugs and surgery. So it's important to understand that all stressors do the exact same thing. Now, this doesn't matter whether you're arguing with a spouse or having problems at work, or you're eating a lousy diet, or you're running from a tiger. The exact same physiological things are taking place in the body. So I want you to think about what would have happened several hundred years ago running from a tiger. Okay, what's going to happen is, all these different stressors that we had talked about. I'll digress for a moment. We're going to move on to something else, and we're going to come back to that thought about running from a tiger. This will come together. Think about for a moment like you were born in a pool. And you're born and you've got these floaties on that are supposed to last you about 120 years without any waves or stressors. And also think of yourself as having a backpack on. And each stress in your life is added to your backpack like putting a rock in it. So like I was saying earlier, the arguments that you have, or not eating well, or all the stress at work and things like that. And you sink a little bit, and the air starts to come out a little bit quicker every time you put one of those rocks in. Some of the rocks are a little bigger than others. And the day-to-day life gets a little bit harder, and it's a little bit more of a struggle. Every time you sink and there's a little less air, you're struggling that much more to be able to stay above water. And use that analogy as we're moving on here. And it doesn't matter what drugs you take for the rocks. What you need to do is take the rocks out of the backpack. And it's really, truly those bad choices that are putting the rocks in your backpack. So we do research on plants, for example. It's important to understand research and the questions that are being asked ahead of time so we know how to interpret it and what they're actually looking for. So we'll take some plants, say that they're all wilting. What's the first thing that you're going to do for a wilting plant? And 10 times out of 10 when I'm asking this to people, they say it's water. Water is going to be the first most important thing. So we do our research study, the gold standard. We've got our test groups. We split them into two. One gets water, one doesn't. And it's all done in a double-blind way. And turns around a few weeks later, and the plants are still wilting. From one perspective point of view, asking the question, is water going to cure these wilting plants? Says, nope, absolutely not. So anybody who gives water to wilting plants is a quack. Well, from another point of view, it would say, okay, well, it didn't necessarily cure or fix the wilting, but water is important for the health of the plant. So we certainly want to still give water to plants like that. And then we move on to the next part of the study, and we add nutrients. So we add water and nutrients, and we have all the different test groups that you can have, and it turns out at the end of the next few weeks that they're still wilting. So anybody who gives water and nutrients to wilting plants are a bunch of quacks. But you say, okay, well, plants need water and nutrients, but that's not the question that's being asked in research studies when we're talking about, more specifically, our medications on one side and then using things that are more natural on the other. And then we add sunlight as the last part of this. And then we've got all of our test groups again, water, nutrients, and sunlight, and we still have wilting plants. So anybody who gives water, nutrients, or sunlight to wilting plants is a bunch of quacks from one particular point of view. And that obviously is kind of ridiculous. Well, certainly plants need all of those things. And that's part of the difference between the allopathic world, where you're trying to give a drug that has a very specific function. It's going to cure and fix something very specifically. Whereas in the holistic natural world, it's not necessarily meant to fix a particular problem. It's meant to generally promote health. And the more we keep taking steps in that direction of 10 out of 10 promoting health and keep building on health and building, the hope is then that you get so healthy that you get past all of your health concerns. And that's just a totally different way of looking at things in a much different philosophy. So as we continue this little research study, we go ahead and we look down the street and see that diesel fuel is contaminating the soil, and that's what's causing the wilting of the plants. So there's a lot of times things that are taking place that we need to look at a little bit deeper, especially when it comes to our health, and just making sure that the choices that we're making are ultimately taking little steps towards that 10 out of 10 health and improving our health. So asking the right questions, like we had said, drug research is not done to get you off pills. It's just to make you feel better. I ask patients all the time when they come in, I understand, you're on these certain medications. How long does your doctor expect you to be on those? And they'll turn around and they'll kind of think for a minute and be like, well, I guess kind of forever. Say, okay, well, if that means forever, then wouldn't that necessarily mean that it's not fixing anything, because if it fixed something, even if it was 5 years, it takes 5 years for it to fix the problem, then ultimately in 5 years then you're done with the medication. But that's not the case. It's not fixing anything. It's like putting duct tape over a check engine light, and you just kind of ignore it for a little while and some of the symptoms go away, but it never really truly fixes the problem. So behavior modification doesn't help. It doesn't really do anything. You take somebody who says, okay, I'm never eating chocolate again, and that part of your subconscious mind says, but I love chocolate. What are you talking about? So, but I'm not going to eat it. But I love chocolate. And you have this very short argument back and forth with yourself, and you might be able to last for a few days, few weeks, maybe even a couple months. But ultimately, when you're trying to modify your behaviors like that, it's just not going to work. You have to change your belief systems about what that food is and what it means to be able to change those things. So you could even take something, a great way to do that is to take that Twinkie or piece of chocolate that you're dying for and go stand naked in front of a mirror and start jumping up and down, and that'll change your belief systems about how important that Twinkie is to you if you're trying to lose a significant amount of weight. Or behavior modification as far as exercising. I'm going to get up every day now at 5 o'clock in the morning and start working out. And most people never even make it to the first morning. They're laying in bed, and if they happen to even wake up, they just kind of turn the alarm off and roll over and don't even get out of bed the very first day. It doesn't happen. We have to change our belief systems about what that means. Taking those foods and literally equating, those foods with nasty, horrible, disgusting, disease-causing things. A lot of people look at cigarettes and recreational drugs, cocaine and alcohol and those things as being destructive to the body. Well, a lot of those junk foods are exactly every bit as much as destructive to the body. So when we understand that and start putting that in our mind, that's going to help change our belief systems and ultimately make the changes that we need to. One of the big differences between allopathic and something that's going to be a little bit more holistic is the questions that you're going to ask ahead of time. And we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, but what I mean is the body always does something for a reason. Ultimately, what we want to do, instead of when we take those symptoms, for example, one group, the allopathic group, will tend to give you a medication to cover up those symptoms. Whereas the other group would say, okay, well, you've got acid reflux. That means your body is kind of trying to regurgitate stuff out of your stomach. What does that tell me? What's the body trying to do? If it is this very intelligent body and it's trying to keep you as healthy and living as long as possible, what does that tell you that the body's trying to do? Maybe you're putting something in it that it doesn't want. And most of the time it's way too much refined and processed junk that's getting put into your body. It's the same way that your toilet, if it backs up and you flush it and it doesn't go down, it overflows the opposite direction. Well, when people become more constipated and they're not digesting their food and it's sitting in their stomach a whole lot longer and their bowels aren't moving and it's 3, 4, 5 days. I've had patients that have been upwards of 2 weeks before going to the bathroom. That just creates a major, major problem. But the body will always do everything it can to keep you alive as long as possible in order to change those particular things. So think about it like being on an ice cube. You're going to try, or an iceberg. You're going to try, ultimately, to keep yourself alive as long as possible. So if you're sitting on that iceberg and you're not really well covered up, what's going to happen is your body and its infinite intelligence is going to start diverting blood away from your fingers and toes and try to bring it to your heart and your liver and your brain and all your vital organs to keep you alive as long as possible until you figure out that you need to get off that iceberg and try to warm up. It's going to buy you time, and it's willing to lose a few fingers and toes in the meantime to be able to do that. And it's the same for anything in our body. If your blood pressure's up, your body's doing it for a reason. It's not getting oxygen to your brain a lot of times as efficiently as it needs to, or other areas of your body. So the body needs to increase the blood pressure so that it's getting blood where it needs to. Western allopathic medicine would say, oh, stupid body. You've got higher blood pressure. It's not supposed to be there. So we're going to purposefully just lower it. And then a lot of times people end up lightheaded and dizzy and all sorts of certain problems that go along with that. Where somebody else, from a different point of view, a more holistic point of view, would say, okay, well, I'm going to step back for a second. Higher blood pressure. Why would the body do that? And when you ask that question, it's like, okay, well, let's think about it for a second. If you are 100 pounds overweight and you've got 70 miles of extra capillaries, and those capillaries are all starting to kind of occlude a little bit, they're getting some cholesterol plaquing from a diet that's very high in refined and processed carbohydrate and those massive slugs of insulin that are going by. So we've got that situation going on. Any physics professor will tell you that if you've got 70 extra miles worth of blood vessels to pump through, that the pump has to pump a little harder. And it'll do that. And your body is smart enough to realize that and start increasing the blood pressure so you can get blood to the brain. So it's just absolutely two different points of view. Next time you end up with a headache or something is hurting in your body or some type of a symptom, from that holistic point of view, be like, okay, well, if my body always does something for a reason, why is it doing this? If you've got diarrhea, for example, that means that your body's trying to eliminate something that it's got inside of it, and it's really trying to do that. Western medicine would say, here, take this, it'll stop your diarrhea. The holistic doctor would say, you know what, your body is really maybe that there's some kind of bacteria or parasite, or you ate something that your body just does not want in it. And you didn't end up throwing it up the top end, and you end up, your body says, well, we need to get rid of this, and we're going to do it as fast as we can, and you end up with diarrhea. Now, the body always, always, always has a reason for doing what it's doing to keep you alive as long as possible. So that's some of the bigger differences between allopathic and a holistic approach to something. So back to our original thought here, when we were talking about running from a tiger versus any of the other types of stresses that can take place in your life, they all ultimately create the same type of physiology in the body. So some of the things are going to happen. What would you want to have happen if you're running from a tiger? Well, it would make sense to keep as much sugar in the bloodstream as possible. You need lots of energy. You got to run as hard as you can. So you're going to have lots of sugar, which means your insulin isn't going to be working as well. And if you're doing this, you're running from a tiger, that's okay for that point in time. But if we're doing this when we're in a constant state of stress, we go from stressful, we didn't sleep that night, to arguing with the spouse, to going to work and being miserable, and then eating lousy meals, if at all day long. And that cycle just keeps going on and on and on. We're creating these things nonstop. We don't get a break from it. So this leads to insulin issues and pre-diabetic and diabetic situations because we've got all this blood sugar in our blood. And then what are the chances of us getting hurt when we're running from a tiger? Probably pretty high. So the body's smart enough to realize that. It's going to make the blood a little thicker, make it stickier with all of our platelets. And if we're in that state constantly, that's going to create some issues with our blood obviously getting stickier and creating problems with clots and other heart disease issues, and potentially much more dangerous things as well. You're going to have problems with, say, for your example, your immune system. You're running from a tiger. Now, remember the last time you were sick? You probably spent a week or two on a couch and had hardly any energy whatsoever because your immune system takes an incredible amount of energy to be able to run it. So if we're running from a tiger, your body isn't going to divert any extra energy to your immune system. And the same thing's going to happen every day in a constant way when we're under that kind of stress, that our immune system is going to be significantly decreased, which is going to open us up to having more health-related issues with our immune system, getting sick more often. We've got in any one of our bodies at any given time all of the different types of bacteria and viruses and problems that are out there. But our immune system is high enough and it fights it off. They're opportunistic. But when our immune system starts dropping, those bacteria, they come out and they do their thing. They can live and they don't have to worry about the immune system. It's not during winter time that there's more bacteria and more viruses. It's just that we've gone from a state of adding more stress to the body. We've added a thermal stress where things get colder. We've added going from things like Thanksgiving where we eat as much as we possibly can, all the way from Thanksgiving through all of the holidays and New Year's and all the stresses. Things are, all these different presents and all the holidays and family and arguments and all those kind of things all coming together. and our immune system takes a big nosedive, and we've added a lot of stress to the body. It's not that there's more bacteria and viruses out there. So also what's going to happen is, think about for a moment when we're running from a tiger. We don't need our frontal cortex, our cerebral cortex, to be rationally thinking about a lot of things. It's going to take some time, and it diverts a lot of blood to our cerebral cortex to be thinking. Where our blood is going to go for our brain is our hindbrain. That's instinctual. That's the reason why animals, they have their natural inborn instincts and reactions that take place automatically. You don't even have to think. So think about it like this for a second. If we're always in that state of fight or flight, running from a tiger all day long every day, our decision making isn't going to be as clear because we don't have as much blood going to our cerebral cortex. We're going to be more in reaction mode. We might be a little bit more jumpy and reacting harshly to people, and our reflexes, we're going to be not able to just focus on one thing. We're going to be hyper alert. You know, we're running from a tiger. We're looking all over the place and seeing if there's more tigers, and every sound and every last thing that's going on. We're hyper aware of everything. And this is the type of individual who is, for example, ADD or ADHD. They're just so hyperactive, and their brain is absolutely everywhere, and they can't calm down and focus on one area. That's where blood is being diverted to a whole different part of our brain than we want it to. But our body is doing what we're telling it to. We're under stress, so we need to divert it there. When we're under stress, we're going to use up our serotonin, which is going to make a situation where we're not sleeping as well. It's going to, obviously, we talked about sugar. It's going to make us crave a lot more sugar when we're under stress because that's the fuel that we need to run from those situations. We're also going to produce a whole lot less of something called sex hormone blinding globulins. So think for a minute, sex hormones. They're going to cause growth and proliferation of cells. So if you've got too much growth hormone out there doing its thing, then we've got all this growth taking place in an uncontrolled way. Ultimately, that's what cancer is uncontrolled growth. So these proteins, sex hormone binding globulins, they're proteins that kind of bind up some of that sex hormone so that they're not active all the time. And when we're under stress, we're going to decrease the amount of those proteins that bind up some of the hormones, which is going to increase the likelihood of just uncontrolled growth of cells. Certainly running from a tiger, our heart rate and blood pressure are going to go up, so that makes sense. That can happen for a lot of people. And it's interesting to keep in mind, too, that you can fatten a cow in 6 weeks, and 90% of them will have liver tumors from the amount of carbohydrates that they're getting in their diet. And you have to put a tube in their stomach. You have to literally cut them open through their side into their stomach and put a tube there to release the gas because their stomachs would explode because of the amount of gas that's in there from digesting those carbohydrates. And so many people even come in with simple issues where they just have a lot of gas and bloating, and a lot of it comes down to our food choices that our body can't really handle that well, and it creates a lot of that gas. So think of an analogy using the fire department where we're kind of comparing it with the allopathic world, like the emergency room. Certainly if your house is on fire, you're going to call the fire department, and they're going to come with their hoses and axes and break the doors down, and they're going to spray everything down, and they're going to get the fire out and save the house. But then you don't turn around a little while later and call the fire department back and have them fix all of the destruction that took place. They saved the house, but they're not going to fix the house afterwards. That's when you call the contractor and the plumber and the electrician and the decorator and make it all look good again and fix it all up. Well, the same sort of thing if you think about it like the emergency room. Certainly if somebody's on death's doorstep and they're really in a lousy situation, they'll keep them alive, and they'll throw anything and everything that they can to keep you alive, and that's a great situation. We've got capabilities to keep people alive like we never had before. But we can't use those same drugs and surgery to necessarily build a vibrant, healthy body afterwards. And there's a lot of ways to go ahead and do that, which certainly we're discussing some of. So taking a look here, sickness care. This is our allopathic dollars at work. Heart disease, 501 million. Cancer, 430 million. Digestive disorders, 337 million. Obesity, 320 million. Diabetes, 273 million. Arthritis, 118 million. Osteoporosis fractures, only 38 million. That's per day. We absolutely can't keep up with those kind of numbers. We're throwing more money at drugs and surgery than ever before, and these things are exponentially increasing. So if we're thinking logically, if we keep throwing more and more money at a situation with a particular side of it is drugs and surgery, and it's just getting worse and worse, it should logically tell us that that must not be the answer, and it certainly isn't the answer. We need to take more responsibility to keep these things from happening in the first place, and a lot of these things can even be reversed by doing the right things and taking responsibility for our health. This is a system that takes that responsibility away from the patient and leaves it up to the fact that, you know what, it just doesn't matter. You can eat the donut or the apple and it's not going to matter, and that's just not the fact. That mind frame is exactly what leads to these numbers, and numbers that are getting worse and worse every single day. So now moving on to moving well. Lots of different benefits. I actually could make hundreds of slides that are going to be similar to this. We'll have a few of them here, but just benefits of moving well. And this isn't going out and working out for 8 hours as hard as you possibly can and being miserable about doing it. This is just even as simple as walking comfortably for 30 minutes a day. You can prevent up to 91% of the cases of obesity and type 2 diabetes. That's as close as 100% as you can get. Prevent up to 50% of all cases of heart disease. Reduce the risk of stroke by 25 to 30%. Prevent up to 50% of all stroke deaths. Reduce congestive heart failure by 63%. Normalize your blood pressure. The list just goes on and on. Reduce risk of breast cancer by up to 60%. Reducing pancreatic cancer in overweight people by 50%. And this is just mind-blowing. Reducing lung cancer in smokers. So they're still smoking, but by moving, you're going to reduce the lung cancer rates by up to 72%. Reducing melanoma cases up to 72%. Preventing up to 50% of colon cancers, one of the number one killers that we have, number one types of cancers that are a problem these days. The list just goes on and on and on as far as the benefits of moving well. Decrease all cases of death by 67% in the general population. And really, when you look at all of these different things, what drug does all of that? There is no drug on the planet that even comes remotely close to having the same type of health benefit as just walking 30 minutes every single day. And there's no negative benefit, no negative side effects to walking every single day. It's only positive at that point. And the positive is just astronomically high. So in asking questions, this is one of those things that is a huge step forward in toward walking towards that 10 out of 10 health. So there's a lot of information here. Where do we start? It can get kind of overwhelming sometimes, starting patients with 1,001 different things that they can do to change their lifestyle and moving them in that 10 out of 10 direction. And really, it can be incredibly simple. Every decision that you make that's in that direction of 10 out of 10, that's exactly what we should be doing. But here's a few things that can make it a little bit easier. Start out with some fresh fiber before every meal. So what we can do is we can have you take some type of a fruit or some type of vegetable and eat that before you eat anything else. My top 3 list of things I think everybody on the whole planet should be taking, I actually have a top 10 list. But the top 3 most important is a good whole food multivitamin. My favorite is Catalin. Some good fish oil, and some probiotics. And I've got other seminars that go into a lot of depth about those few things. Certainly feel free to ask anytime, and I'll be willing to spend that time with you. But those are the 3 most important things I think people should do. Walking 30 minutes every single day. Certainly wrestling around with your kids, having really good quality time with the family. Gets a little bit of exercise and some bonding time. And because of that mental, emotional power of health and its effects on our body, never ending a day or beginning a day without being in that state of gratitude and love. And certainly getting an appointment, getting your baseline numbers tested so that you can get on a good plan. When you know where you're at, then you can set your goals and where you want to get to, and you've got very definitive roadmap on how to get there. Measuring that other 90% of your body's functions. A lot of people don't realize that your nervous system controls absolutely everything that takes place in your body, but only 10% of it has anything to do with symptoms and pain and things that you feel. The other 90% is all the other functions of everything that's just taking place without your recognition. You know, the beating of your heart and the functioning of your liver and things like that. So measuring the function of all of those things is important. Most people end up making their health decisions based on 10% of the information. Nobody would go buy a house or make major financial decisions or decisions on relationships with their spouses only knowing 10% of the information at that point. It wouldn't make sense, and that's exactly what we do in our healthcare. So measuring that other 90%, there's a lot of different ways that we can measure the function way before something would show up symptomatically and way, way before something would show up on a lot of just the regular things that people would do, like blood tests, for example. It's certainly not early detection of major problems. A lot of times I'll explain a situation where you're doing a liver panel, for example, to see the health of somebody's liver. The only way your liver enzymes are going to show that they're increased and having a major problem with your liver is that if your liver is so sick and so diseased that it literally, those cells are dying and breaking open and those enzymes end up in your blood, and then you can measure them. But until it gets that bad, then you could walk away after your blood test and the doctor tells you, no, the liver panel looks good, there's no problems. But there could be a huge gray area in between total, complete, optimum health of that liver and all the way until it's so bad that it's actually going to show something in the blood. And that's what we're talking about, measuring some of those functions of the body well before a lot of different tests will. So that will end the first half of it, and then we'll get into the second half of our seminar in just a second as I switch something over here real quick. Okay. So more on the mental, emotional side, the successful side of things. I love this part of the seminar here. What stops us from moving forward? And ultimately, what the answer is fear. Fear can destroy our psychology and immobilize us from taking action. Examples of fear and failure: fear of rejection, fear of success, fear of love, fear of being alone, and fear of the unknown. And there's two primary fears that all human beings share: that we're not enough and that we won't be loved. So what controls and determines the quality of our lives? Well, ultimately it comes down to our beliefs and our values. The same exact event can happen to two different people. And one side can say that God is punishing me and be paralyzed by the event, and the other person can see it as God's challenging me, and it's moved me and motivated me and pushed me through to newer and higher levels of achievement. So ultimately, what is your empowering philosophy? So for example, in chiropractic, a basic philosophy is that the body is self-healing and self-regulating, and the nervous system controls everything that happens and takes place in the body. That's partly what we've been discussing earlier. Hence, if you improve the function of the nervous system, then you will necessarily be healthier and improve the function of all the other systems and processes in the body. Anything the body creates, the body can cure if you change the proper stimulus that caused it in the first place. And that's a major premise. Do you believe that we are genetically and spiritually programmed for disease, obesity, and illness? If you don't believe that, and we kind of discussed that in the first part of the seminar, where our genes aren't dictating those things, it's coming down to our choices that we're making. But if you don't believe that, then you feel as though that we do have direct control over our state of physical, emotional, and spiritual health. You don't have to get sick and have pain and suffering at any level of disease. These aren't normal things. There are no normal fatigue, normal headaches, normal obesity, normal heart disease, normal cancer, normal diabetes. These are all things that we attract from our decisions and diseases that we have earned. We need to step up and take responsibilities for where that we are in life. So what do you believe about your relationships, for example? And we can take the same basic philosophy and apply it to any area, but it's just a simple one for people to be able to see and understand a little bit more readily with relationships. So if we believe things like, well, my partner is a major source of happiness in my life. Living life without my partner is unbearable. My life is better, more fulfilled, and joyous because of my partner and my family. Life is more exciting and fulfilling when I share it with my loved ones. So, for example, relationships with friends and family keep me motivated and inspired, and I can count on them to be there when I need them most. Relationships are synergistic in an upward spiral of growth, love, and contribution. My relationships are always looking out for my best interests and always supportive of my goals, dreams, and aspirations. So if deep down in your heart you truly believe those things, the love and happiness my partner feels for me is a direct reflection of the health of our relationship, then why is it that why would we ever come close to doing anything to harm, belittle, or create tension with our greatest source of love and happiness? It's almost like we'll sit there and we'll argue our point just to win an argument and doing nothing for that ultimate purpose of why we're in the relationship to begin with. We're creating destructive processes as opposed to taking a look at what's my purpose here? My purpose isn't to win this one fight, even though I think that I'm right. This is the most important piece of my life. Or take, for example, people's philosophy on money, just a little bit different perspective. Some people think that money is the absolute hardest thing to get their hands on, and other people would say things like this: money is easy to make and flows to me. I always have the money that I need, and opportunities are surrounding me everywhere to make more. All I have to do is be specific and focused on what I am looking for. Finances are a fun and rewarding way of expansion of my purpose in life and an enjoyable process. Money is the result of my purpose in life, not the cause of it. The money I do make is used to support my family and lifestyle and to promote and expand my vision and purpose in life. So, what is your purpose? Your purpose is not necessarily pain and pleasure driven. Pain can make you change your course and goals into a new and easier direction. A purpose-driven individual knows with certainty that nothing will get in their way. No lake or mountain is too big. You just get creative and find a way to reach and strive for your purpose. Your purpose is a direct reflection of your philosophy, and they must not be in contradiction. So if you're wanting to make the biggest differences in people's lives, for example, it doesn't matter what your profession, say that you really, truly want to make a difference in people's lives. Let's just hypothetically say somebody's a teacher and they're going to make differences in children's lives. Well, ultimately, if you're going to make the biggest possible changes that you can helping other people's lives, then that would mean that you yourself need to have a very high level of energy and health to be able to do that. So in order to be able to do those things in your purpose, you need to put a lot of focus and attention on your health. And you come up against these road bumps and there's problems that are distracting you from being healthy. You've got these big mountains in your way, different things that come up, but it doesn't matter. It's all about those kids and being able to help them in every single way that you can. And it doesn't matter. You're going to go up and over the mountain and through it and figure out a way to be able to get what you need to help those people. And it's the same thing in everything in life. When we've got our purpose in mind, it doesn't matter what gets in the way. Ultimately, we're going to be able to focus on that and give everything that we've got towards that purpose. So an example of my philosophy for my business as a doctor, and this is exactly written up in my business plan. It's to create a profit, certainly, it's a business, while providing worldwide health, wellness, and education, bringing patients to a higher level of health and to help them actualize their highest potential that they can get to. It's committed to serving the true healthcare needs of as many people as possible that are within my reach and the many doctors that I teach. I acknowledge the devastating effects of interferences in the nervous system on human health and therefore go to extraordinary measures in education of the communities worldwide in educating doctors about the benefits of chiropractic, nutrition, and applied kinesiology for the restoration of health, how to eat well, move well, and think well. My mission is to serve as many people as possible with the highest quality of health and wellness care so that these masses may realize their full potential. I encourage my patients and doctors I teach to help by participating in this most important and noble mission. I will use as many and all resources available to expand this purpose and mission for the rest of my life and enjoy the process. And I live this every single day with everything that I've got. And I've got other one doctor in particular who I graduated with, who shares the exact same philosophy and belief systems. And I remember being there at his place not too long ago for a seminar weekend, and it was out of town. And even on a Friday night at 1 o'clock in the morning, we're watching patient videos and discussing different things about patients that we can be able to work on and be able to help. That's our passion. That's what our purpose is and our philosophy about what we're trying to do with that kind of passion. And when people figure out what their purpose and their passion is in life, then it's what you think about when you wake up in the morning, and it's what focuses you, and it gives you that juice to do things and just keep going on it through the rest of your day. And it's very important to keep in mind to proceed with certainty. We never want to try to do something. So, for example, if you're sitting there and you stand up for a minute and you try to lift up your chair, and I've done this in seminars before where I say, all right, I want you to try to lift up that chair, and usually they end up lifting it up. I say, no, put it down. I want you to actually try to lift it up. And they kind of look puzzled for a little while, but then they realize that trying to do something is totally different than actually just doing it. So that's kind of a interesting distinction, but actually there's a big long quote. I've got it on my website from one of the movie clips from Yoda. It's kind of funny. So watch that when you get an opportunity. That's fun. In the member section, there's Yoda's quote there. The pattern of your emotions drive the meaning we associate to things in our lives. So how you use your physical body, how you move, breathe, your posture, and your movements, what you focus on, you will feel and attract into your life. As soon as we put words into an experience, it changes the meaning we are experiencing. So this can happen in every different aspect of our life. But take, for example, somebody like Michael Jordan. There's a big difference when his team is down by 1 point and there's no time left on the clock, and the other team is called a timeout, and then he has to walk up to that line. You can see it in every ounce of every fiber in his body, the way that he's breathing, his posture, and the way he's walking up there. You see the confidence that he knows that those 2 baskets are going in. Versus somebody who might walk up to that line and you can see them kind of shallow breathing and they're hunched over and they look as scared as they could possibly look. You can tell even before they shoot, which person is going to make it and which person isn't. So we can control our physiology and our state of being and our body by, okay, well, if I want this kind of health, how would this type of a person that I want to be, how would they breathe? How would they walk? How would they hold themselves? All of those different things. And we can control that right away, and that's going to change our entire physiology in our body. And it's really important to model the best. When there's somebody that we know is the best in a particular field that we're trying to follow, then model what they're doing. It'll save you years and propel you forward and help you with the skills and strategies and processes that we need to get there. So where can you spend the greatest time to get the greatest results? Often people spend their time on majoring in minor things and spend most of their time being busy and not necessarily getting the results and progress. So focusing on the results, spending 80% of our time that get us the most amount of our results is really important. So human need is really that universal force that propels us and moves us in our life. And regardless of who we are, our backgrounds, our professions, our religion, race, creed, it doesn't matter. We're all driven day by day to fulfill these primal needs, and they've been encoded into our nervous system over centuries. So there's 6 altogether. The 4 are the primal needs that we absolutely must have. The first one being certainty. Everyone wants stability about their basic necessities, food, shelter, and other material resources. When people cannot control their physical circumstances, they may seek certainty through a state of mind. So, this would explain, for example, why somebody would stay in an abusive relationship. That, at least it's offering them a certain level of certainty on a day-to-day basis. They know what to expect. It sounds kind of ludicrous when you think about it, but it is providing them one of their basic needs to have that certainty and not flip their life upside down. We all need uncertainty. We need a little bit of variety. Significance. Everybody needs to feel special and important in some way or another. People will seek significance through obtaining recognition from others and themselves. When people feel insignificant, they may make themselves feel more significant by getting angry. This is certainly a type of a patient that I'll have coming into the office all the time, where they come in and they, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm a member of, this group and member of this group and that group, and they associate themselves with their diseases. So take something like, I'll just throw one out there like fibromyalgia. I'm a member of this fibromyalgia group and this fibromyalgia group. They don't even say their name. They're just, hi, I'm so-and-so, I have fibromyalgia. That's who they identify themselves with. I am that disease. And yeah, that's what gives them significance. You couldn't start having a conversation without them bringing it up that they have fibromyalgia. Everybody in the whole room knows it. That's what gives them their significance. So people will hold on to their diseases so much because it gives them that significance that creates a major barrier and block. They say on one side that they want to be healthier, but on the other side, it's giving them that significance, so they're holding on to it with everything that they've got. And a lot of times they don't see that connection right away. And the fourth major primal need is love and connection. Humans need to feel connected with someone or something, a person, an ideal, a habit, or a sense of identity. And connection may take the form of love or merely intense engagement. So those are the four most important, but then we've got two other more spiritual type needs. First one being growth. Everything in the universe is either growing or dying. There's no third alternative. And if you're not growing, you're doing the opposite. And the second being contribution. And just as people cannot survive without others contributing in some way to their welfare, no baby ever grew up on its own, they can't be spiritually fulfilled unless they are contributing to others as well. And people find ways to meet these needs in positive and negative ways, or even in neutral ways, but every person finds a way to meet every single one of those 6 needs. So a lot of times it comes down to asking better questions. So if you ask, well, why does this always happen to me? Why am I always so sick and fat and I can't lose weight? Your brain will find an answer to that. Well, this is exactly why you're sick and fat and overweight, and it'll create more of that in your life. Or if we ask a little bit different question, like, well, how can I lose weight and become healthier and actually enjoy doing that? Your brain will come up with that answer too, and you'll find ways to actually enjoy losing weight. So be really mindful and careful. Our brains are so incredibly important and powerful. If we just take those things that we do want to change and put a positive spin on them and find a way to actually enjoy doing it, our brains will find a way to do that, and it can be a lot more powerful way to change things in our life for the better. So how do we change a behavior, an emotion, or a bad pattern? We have to get some kind of leverage on ourselves or the situation, interrupt the pattern, and then create an empowering alternative. You can't just sit there and say, oh, I want to change and not eat chocolate anymore and just kind of say that. Well, if you don't want to eat chocolate, go take a look down and walk around dialysis unit. All of the people who are type 2 diabetics and their kidneys have shut down and they've all got diabetic ulcers, and you go down there enough and you realize that some people aren't there anymore and people are passing away, and that might change give you a little bit of leverage and change your thoughts about those types of foods in your diet. What we need to do a lot of times, creating momentum to achieve our goals, is to put ourselves in a peak state. And I tell this to people every single day, starting off your day and ending your day in that peak state and trying to keep it there all day long. You can start off your day and sometimes you start it off and you're like, you know what, I'm just in a miserable mood. I feel off. I'm anxious about something. You don't want to get out of bed and go the whole rest of the day starting out there. And a lot of times music will do it for people. Sometimes it's different video or movie clips. Sometimes it's really thinking about being in that state of gratitude or who they love. But when you change and you think about those things and you put your favorite music on that just juices you up and makes you feel better, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. There are certain songs you could just probably sing at the top of your lungs and it just makes you feel great. If we can control our state of mind, that's going to be able to make a big impact on how everything comes about through the rest of our day and our lives as well. We need to find our passions, decide and commit with certainty, which we've talked about, take immediate, intelligent, and massive action, and be honest, evaluate and reevaluate. We don't necessarily, all right, we've got our purpose and our passions, we've got our philosophies behind it, we're taking this action. we have to be smart enough to be able to reevaluate. Okay, is this getting me to where my purpose is or not? If not, then you can just redirect the sails a little bit, and then we go even harder towards where we're trying to get to. Two key beliefs that have really helped in a lot of situations and many people's lives, that something that is very good to be able to keep in mind, especially when you have a hard time dealing with stressful, anxious type of situations, and people frustrate you, is that people do the best they can with what they have. And there are no unresourceful people, only unresourceful states. You can hear something that happens, and right after you listen to your absolute favorite songs, you're totally juiced up, and you hear some type of stressful situation, and it almost bounces off of you. You hear it, you can focus on it and take care of it, and it's not a big deal. Or if you woke up in the morning and you're just already have a lot of anxiety, and then you've got anxiety about the bills you just made, and you had an argument, and then something else big comes up, you just won't handle it the same way, and it's really going to affect you. So people doing the best they can with what they have. I had heard a story, one that Dr. Tony Robbins had told, where he's on a bus and this guy gets on with his kids, and his kids are jumping all over the place, up and down, and they're kind of being just all over the place and really disrupting a lot of people. He's like, "Sir, do you think that you could, control your kids? This is kind of ridiculous. They're on a public bus here." And the father's kind of like sad. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. Their mother just died, and they probably just don't know how to handle it. I guess I don't either." And it kind of makes you sit back there for a minute, and you almost feel like a horrible person after what they've gone through. People always, 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 if you think about it, that they're doing the best they can with what they have. Maybe they just have had the worst possible day, and they started yelling off in a stressful situation, or they cut you off in a car, or did something in a grocery store, whatever it is in your life. You can take a step back, kind of smile inside, send a little bit of love their way, and just say, you know what, they must have just had a lousy day. They're doing the best they can with what they have. I've got those days too, so I don't need to judge those situations. That's really going to create a lot of more peace in your heart, and people don't realize the kind of effect that our emotions and our thoughts have on our health, and those negative ones just eat at our core. And if we can avoid those by especially believing that people are doing the best they can with what they have, it creates a lot more peace in our own hearts, and can help our own health in a lot of different ways. So 7 areas of constant growth for an extraordinary life. We've got our physical bodies, our emotions, our relationships, time, work and career, finances, and celebrating and contributing in a spiritual sense. Those are 7 huge ways and things that all have focuses and purposes behind all of them. And when they all intertwine and they start just harmonizing, and they all start coming together and working really well. So to fast track the results, get really super focused and clear about your vision and what it is that you want, what your purpose is, strong enough reasons to follow through, and total honesty about where you are. We need to get the tools for success. Get a proven roadmap. Get coaches and experts and mentors. If it's your health that you're trying to work on, then go to the highest level experts that you can find and help. They know how to get you from where you are in your health to a higher level of health. Get the principles and the skills to stay focused on, the standards and rituals. People who are healthy, if you were to hang around healthy people all day, there's certain things that all of them are always doing. And we start adapting those type of rituals and standards in your life, and lo and behold, you become one of those healthy people too, because you're doing the same thing that they are. It's not, they're lucky individuals. They're doing very specific things every day that's causing that to happen. Get a peer group that'll help pull you to a higher level. If you're hanging around people that are overweight and sick and miserable, there's a really, really high level of possibility that you'll turn into one of those people if you're not already. So getting aligned with what it is that we want, our purpose, and then actually the actions that we take being in alignment with that purpose. So 5 P's to prosperity. Ultimately, prosperity doesn't have to mean money. This can be prosperity in our relationships, in our health, in all those different aspects that we were talking about earlier. So the most important, that base, that triangle almost looks like the food pyramid. The most important part of the food pyramid for our prosperity has to do with our purpose and being incredibly right on and focused about what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And then we need to have that philosophy behind our purpose, the reasoning behind it, and the psychology. That's where we were talking about that state of mind. Okay, well, I know what it is that I want. I've got that passion and philosophy behind it. And now I'm waking up every single day and I'm totally juiced and excited to do it. And then it comes down to the procedures. A lot of times people want to, well, tell me what to do and I'll start doing it. And you could take the most successful people's procedures in the world and just start trying to do them randomly, and it won't work without that passion and drive and purpose behind it, and that mental psychology that you've got that kind of juice going every day. If you just kind of go about it and there's no energy in what you're doing and you're not really juiced up, you're going to get totally different type of a response than somebody who has a different psychology. So our purpose, like we had said, your purpose is what gets you out of bed in the morning. There's no greater driving force in life. The more primitive force is pain versus pleasure. Purpose will get you to cross the stream, like we said, and climb the mountain, where pain will get you off course and get you to try to go around and not move forward at all. Our philosophy is what you believe to be the truth. When you have a contradiction in your foundation, it will crumble. Identify the contradictions from your philosophical premises. If you don't, it leads to destruction. So if you've got your purpose includes being as healthy as you could possibly be, and your philosophy says, well, I can eat chocolate as much as I want, those two contradict at some point. You'll get to a certain level. You may even not be putting out a lot of weight at some point, but at some point it creates enough of a contradiction that you're only going to get so far, and it creates a ceiling as far as how far you're going to get. Psychology, like we said, the philosophy shapes our psychological experiences, our emotions, our effects, not the causes. Procedures, your procedures are what you do, and they should serve your philosophy and your purpose, or again, it'll lead to that destruction and it won't serve you. Prosperity, it's the ultimate effect of who you are. We are in a be, do, have type of a society. It's a cause and effect thing. You can't just automatically start out on day one with prosperity. There's a lot of building blocks that lead to ultimate prosperity. So just to kind of get the point across, we'll use chiropractic as an example again as far as two axioms or premises. Chiropractic has a more vitalistic view of the body. They ask a different question. It's about health and healing. What is the nature of health and healing? How is it evoked or developed? A living body is self-healing and self-regulating. That's part one. Part two is the nervous system is the master system and the master controller of the body. So nothing happens within the human experience that doesn't involve the nervous system. So epistemology would say if 1 and 2 are correct, so if we have a body that's self-healing and self-regulating and the nervous system is what controls all of that, then any interferences in the nervous system will necessarily affect the body's ability to heal and self-regulate itself. And that's exactly what my job is to do, to find any type of interference in the nervous system. They could be physical, nutrition, toxins, electromagnetic pollution, emotional problems, allergies and sensitivities, detoxification issues that are all leading to interferences with your nervous system functioning the way that it was supposed to allow your body to heal itself. This is an excellent author. Definitely recommend reading a lot of her work. But one of the things that she says is that it's a moral crime to support ideas with which you disagree. It's a moral crime to support your own destruction. All growth takes place outside of your comfort zone. It's not always an easy thing to do to refocus these things and to actually create the kind of growth and changes that you want in your life and to focus on. But it's sometimes a little bit uncomfortable, but it doesn't matter how uncomfortable it is, because when that's our purpose in life and that's our belief and what we're focusing on more than ever, then we're willing to go through whatever discomfort it is because we've got that purpose that's driving us. So I'll leave everyone with that. I thank you very much for joining me. You can go onto my website on wellnesscny.com. A lot of the seminars and webinars that I've been doing, I've been recording them, including this one, and they'll be saved under the member section, the very first thing under member topics. There's a drop-down box that's there, and a lot of those are on there. This one will be on in the next couple of days. you'll be able to watch that as well. So certainly recommend you do that. There's lots of other fun videos and ways to learn on the website. And certainly feel free to call the office at any point in time, and I can try to answer all your questions and try to create what I'm working on trademarking as a wellness pandemic. We've got pandemic used for all these different types of diseases and problems in the world. Well, I want to try working on creating this wellness pandemic, and certainly can use your help in any way to be able to spread this kind of information to as many people as possible. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing as well. So that we let health take over the world and help alleviate and change some of these problems for the better. So thank you very much for joining, and I will look forward to hearing from you hopefully in the near future. Have a great day.